My name is Siti Nurbaya binti Omar, and I would like to present on introduction part and HSND. Cooling tower is actually a special type of heat exchanger that will bring the air and water into direct contact in order to reduce the water temperature in the cooling tower itself. In our scope today, we will discuss 6 types of cooling tower. The first one is hyperbolic stacked natural draft cooling tower, or sometimes it can be called as hyperboloid stacked natural draft cooling tower (HSND). For its general information, the first step is the air will flow into the tower through opening in the bottom, and it will cool the entering water, which is the hot water. The cold water then will flow out the bottom, and warm, moist air will exit out from the bottom as it is less dense. This density difference between the cold entering air and warm exiting air will result in natural draft that causes the airflow through the column, as shown in the figure attached here. For the equipment design, HSND cooling tower is constructed of a thin concrete shell with strong air resistance, and its hyperbolic shape enhances the aerodynamic lift and provides strength, which is better than the cylindrical shape. The opening at the bottom allows air to enter, as discussed in previous slide. Because of the height, which is larger than the density difference, the outgoing vapor upstream exits at sufficient high elevation. There are also many advantages of HSND cooling tower. One of them is superior strength. It provides a close match to natural flow of air through the tower shell. If designed with proper windbreaker, it can resist all forces and ballasts. It also has minimal operating costs. A good natural draft cooling tower usually are designed to be safe for its entire lifetime, irrespective of any accidental damage. Thus, we don't require a large amount of money to fix it often. Many researchers also said that these HSND are clean energy generating method. This is because it absorbs dirt and bacteria suspended in the air, which accumulate at the basin of the cooling tower. However, there are also several disadvantages of HSND cooling tower. The first one is their performance depends on wind velocity and direction. The second one is they are only effective for large quantities of utilities water. The third one is they are very sensitive to climate change. They are also maybe negative in the public eye in terms of their physical appearance. The fifth is they require high cost of utility water. And the last one is they require a large area. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Nurul Izzati binti Amir Sham, and I'll be presenting on counterflow cooling towers. So for the mechanism of counterflow cooling towers, there's an induced draught fan attached to a motor which is located at the top of the tower and draws the cooled air upwards against the downward flowing water. So the flow of air is opposite to the direction of the water flow, which results in a greater thermal efficiency. The outside shell is usually made of both wood or steel and fiberglass, and the fill, or the internal packing, is commonly made up of rigid corrugated PVC. Counterflow cooling towers are commonly used for air conditioning, process cooling, or power generation. The advantages of counterflow cooling towers is that it's highly efficient due to high transfer efficiency because of the breakup of water in the spray. The design also allows air to flow at high velocities, which prevents backflow of humid air. And finally, spray water distribution also makes the tower freeze resistant. The disadvantages of counterflow cooling towers is that it has higher initial and long-term costs due to the pump requirements, and structural and noise problems may be present due to the design having a fan at the top of the tower. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and Hai everyone. My name is Amira Nabila binti Muhammad Yazid. So today I would like to present about the type of cooling tower, which is cross-flow cooling tower. So we move to the introduction of cross-flow cooling tower. In this cross-flow tower, the water flow freely into the distribution basin, which is hot water basin that located in the upper part of the tower. In this cross-flow cooling tower system, the water vertically flow through the fill media, while the air is horizontally flow across the falling water. So, in this figure, it shows how the cooling tower works. As you can see, there is a hot water here that flows into the fill material. And here there is a dry air flow across the hot water. That is why we call it as cross-flow cooling tower. In this cross-flow cooling tower, there is a fan or motor driven electric that functions to cool out the dry air from the tower. Next, this cross-flow cooling tower have several advantages and disadvantages. For the advantage, it can operate at higher velocity than counterflow tower that leads to lower power consumption. It also constructed wider and shorter than counterflow tower that leads to the lower pumping cost. And lastly, it's relatively easy to maintain. For the disadvantage, the air travels through a shorter path than in counterflow tower that leads to the lower thermal efficiency. Next, the coldest air doesn't contact to the hottest water that leads to the thermal efficiency too. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Mishafika binti Adnan and I'm going to talk about the hyperbolic step force draft cooling tower. Hyperbolic step force draft cooling tower is a combination of the hyperbolic shape of a natural draft cooling tower with large motor-driven fans and the stack effect, which is the process of separation between hot and cold air based on their densities. Because of the forced draft system, the cooling tower has a motorized fan in the air inlet to force the air into the cooling tower, creating high entry and low exiting air velocities. The mechanism of the cooling tower. When the hot water pumping through the water distribution inside the cooling tower, the nozzle sprays out the hot water downward to expose as much water surface area as possible for maximum air-water contact. Then, the hot water will counterface with the air going upward and some of the water will evaporate and goes out at the top of the cooling tower and the cold water will go down to the bottom of the cooling tower. Next is the advantage and disadvantages of the cooling tower. The advantage of the cooling tower is that the fans are a great control of the air movement inside the cooling tower, while the disadvantages of the cooling tower is that we have recirculation and fogging, where one of the reasons for recirculation is that the high air inlet velocity is creating low pressure area near the inlet that attract recirculation to happen. And lastly, the costs for the maintenance are high due to the pump and fans at the cooling tower. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will present the atmospheric type of cooling tower. Atmospheric cooling tower are similar to natural draft cooling tower in many ways. The main difference between the two lies in the mechanism of air movement. In an atmospheric cooling tower, natural wind current provide the air supply. The tower are narrow but tall so that enough wind can enter the tower. Lowers on the side prevent water from being blown out and allow air to enter in any direction. Hot, moist air rise in the tower, drawing in colder outside air. The advantage of an atmospheric cooling tower is less power requirement. This is because in this process, it uses only natural air from the atmosphere to cool down the hot temperature. The disadvantage for this process is performance varies due to its dependence on wind direction and velocity. Second disadvantage of this process is require a considerable amount of clear ground space in the area surround them as well to get the high performance of the cooling process. Lastly, it need more area per unit of cooling than most towers to allow air from the atmosphere to enter the tower.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I am Muhammad Aiman. I'm going to talk about wet and dry cooling tower. A wet cooling tower are those buildings where the water that was heated by industrial or power generation process is cooled again. The heat is given off to the environment. Wet cooling towers are an integral part of the thermodynamic cycle. The water to be cooled is sprayed and distributed over the splash field. As a result, the water temperature drops when the evaporation heat is withdrawn and the air gets humidified. Dry cooling tower conduct heat transfer through air-cooled heat exchanger that separate the working fluid from the cooling air. Because there is no direct contact between working fluid and the ambient air, there is no water loss in this system. Dry cooling tower have a two basic type, which is direct and indirect system. This is an example of equipment design for the wet cooling tower and dry cooling tower. The usage of wet cooling tower are more suitable for the large industrial facility that require cooling of vast volume of water, while dry cooling tower are more particularly suited for the small to medium industrial and commercial application and require a free cooling system. The advantages of the wet cooling tower is able to cool down processed water below dry bulk temperature, reliable operation in hot ambient condition, and high cooling capacity. While the advantages of this equipment is high installation cost, high operating cost, and high water consumption. The advantages first, which is low cost, able to work in any climate, no water consumption. While disadvantages for this equipment is cannot cool the processed water below the dry bulk temperature, and it is low capacity per unit.